And here, I'm going to try and be quick because I don't think you'll stand too much of this, because I'm going to talk about finance. To make it better for you, I'm going to talk about money. The first thing to note, referring back to yesterday's video on UBI and some comments, is to make a dichotomy type thing, which doesn't really exist in real life, but for your talking and thinking, you can at least think of it as a dichotomy. That's a Y in the road. As in UBI, how is it going to be paid for? Where is the money going to come from? There are two systems, ways that can be taken. You can have the recycling of present monies, that sort of thing, which it would involve or would definitely come under the rich can bloody well pay for it. Or Pyro was going on about land tax or something, and that land tax can basically pay for it. But what you have, and I'm not saying anything's good or bad in this one, but it's circulating of current monies. Yeah, so that's one side. The other side is you make new money to pay for the UBI. Now, obviously, this or this is a political decision, or fusion of the two is a political decision. No, okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about, which is much harder, but is to give you a flavour, to give you an idea of how finance goes on. So I thought, because I've mentioned it in the past, that the ECB, or the European people, have done a couple of things since the 2009 crisis, which are really quite clever. They've actually, what we could call, got their shit together. And in the end, you'll see what I mean by they and getting their shit together. There is no central party here. Finance is all over the place. And these all over the places have to be dragged together to make for finance. Right. So, a political decision was made to create an entity. Now, I haven't gone back and checked or anything like this, so I'm going on memory, and that's a dangerous thing for me to do. But they created a thing called the European Investment Bank. So where is the money to come from that the European Investment Bank is going to lend out for European investments? What they kind of got to do, I'll do this as quickly as I can because I know you'll lose the will to live if I go too deeply into it. Basically, it was promised hundreds of billions from the European countries, on the understanding that absolutely that they would not have to pay these billions. Yeah, like Germany might be in for 100 billion or something, but the understanding was we'll only actually ever give you 5% of that, because otherwise they have to justify to their own electorates where these hundreds of billions are going to be going and who's responsible for it and whatever. So they said, all right, we'll, on paper, promise to give you, let's say, 100 billion, but we'll only give you 5 billion. Because when it was set up, the whole idea was people got their shit together, of people that understood finance, and said, look, as you've got to promise the big number, but only give us the small number. So politically, you can cover yourself that you've only given the small number, but politically, you can make big promises by saying, you've promised the big number. It's political, it's nonsense. All finance is nonsense. Right. So the thing was set up. Where does it go? Okay, which we should go now. To get the money, it issues bonds. Now, I won't go into whether this is new money or circulating existing money. You'll see for the moment that this is circulating existing money. We'll take it as that. So who's going to buy the bonds? You've got investment companies, pensions, insurance companies, banks, people like that, who have got technical Amazon coin money that they need. That's your deposit, but behind the scenes they've got to invest it. So this is a brand new institution set up. It's got no real good credit rating. So there was another agency that had been in existence for a while. I think it was not European Investment Bank, some other European something or other anyway, that had something to do with money. And it had no money either. It was one of these only 5% in there with promises of money. It got no much money anyway. European something agency. Doesn't matter. It's just all hypothetical anyway. But if important people set these things up, you've got clout and you can make promises and people believe them. So this agency promised that they would back the new agency, the European Investment Bank. In other words, they'd guarantee them. They didn't have what it takes to guarantee them. It's like FDIC in America. They don't have the money actually to really back your Amazon deposits in the bank, but it says it does. And this is the thinking. If FDIC runs into trouble, you think, well, the government will bail out FDIC, which will bail out the bank. And that's the same thinking here, that the new investment bank doesn't have any money, but it's guaranteed by something that doesn't have any money. But if you're going to buy their bonds, you think, well, this is a new agency, they won't let that fail. This is an old agency, they won't let that fail. So although it's not, you think, it'd be all right. Because this agency guaranteed this agency, then this agency got the credit rating of this agency. It got to be investment grade, not junk. And because it was investment grade, the European Central Bank said, we'll take this as collateral for... I won't go into what central banks take collateral for. But then, as soon as that happens, then banks can invest in it because that's as good as money for banks, because they can play the collateral thing with the central bank. So by really having no money, but just promises and guarantees, they have created something that's investment grade, and the European Central Bank then you think, well, the European Central Bank are taking it as collateral. They now won't want the whole system to fall. So it's really well solid, but only on promises and blah, blah. There's actually no more money in the system. This is the tricky bit, and I'll just breeze through it very quickly. It's like when you go into the bank to get a mortgage. I think you all know now that you don't get a sum of my money. The bank actually creates extra money for you. It doesn't create money. It writes the deposit in on your side, and it writes the asset in that you're going to pay it back on the asset side of the bank. It enlarges its own balance sheet. When it makes a loan, it enlarges its own balance sheet. What happens with these new bonds from the European investment bank? Now banks will enlarge their balance sheets just to buy them. They will put a deposit, Amazon tokens, in somebody's bank account, and they will take, that's increasing it on this side, on the liability side, and they'll put the bond on their asset side. It's actually made new money, because then these can be put to the European Central Bank for reserves to cover paying other banks. Okay, so it's confusing. So you can ask yourself, well, has new money been created? And then I go, This is what I keep telling you. There's no fucking thing as money. There is finance. There's all this shenanigans going on. Yeah? Are the Amazon token deposits in your bank statement money? Is what the investment bank lend out money? Are the bonds money? No, it's just finance. So you can ask yourself, well, has more finance been created? And you go, well, again, it's all very difficult. Because yes, banks have now increased their balance sheets. Banks are on their books worth more or something. But you can't say it's money. It's very, very difficult. But let's go right back to where we started. And if down the pub you want to talk about this sort of thing and where's the money going to come from, just ask the question to know what you're dealing with. Are you going to do the taxes sort of thing, recirculate monies that are already existing, or are you somehow going to use finance to create new monies to pay for the UBI? What I think has to happen is new monies have to be created for any sort of UBI, because there is not enough. Because this is a desperation move. There won't be enough people to make enough promises to make enough money appear on this side to make enough money to pay out on the UBI. You're going to need creative finance, not just taxing rich people or land or something like that. Because that's, if you'd like, this is dealing with a finite resource. What we need here is magic monies. And it's the finance people that can do the magic monies, not the taxing and spending peoples. Okay? Hopefully that gives you some grist for your thinking mills. Bye.